Hello everyone, thanks for joining me in this new OET grammar lesson, and we're going to be focusing on the passives this time. In fact, we're going to be looking at what passives are, how you make them, why we use them, and when we can't use them. This was a question that one of our YouTube students, Anish, asked me, and he wanted to know more about simple present passives in OET letters. That's a great question, and that's what we're going to look at right now. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sona. I'm a premium preparation provider of the OET with Bose Learning. Thanks very much for joining me today. So, first of all then, what is the passive? But before we look at that, we need to understand what the active is. Let me give you some examples. We might say the paramedics are driving the patient to hospital. So the paramedics are the people that drive the ambulance and take care of the patient. They are the first responders in an emergency. You might also say, I taught Mr. Murthy how to use an EpiPen, or I will order a repeat test for Mrs. Jacobs next month. All those sentences are perfectly fine, they are grammatically correct, and they make sense. They're nice and clear. The paramedics are bringing the patient to hospital. I taught my patient how to use the EpiPen in case he has an allergic reaction to something. And I've ordered some more tests for Mrs. Jacobs next month. Nothing too strange about that. But let's look at where our focus is for each of these sentences. In the first one, the subject, and therefore our main focus, are the paramedics. In number 2 and 3, it's me. I taught Mr. Murthy how to use the EpiPen, and I am going to order these tests next month. But quite often in patient-centred care, and actually just in common sense, we don't really want myself or the paramedics to be the main focus. We want the patient to be the focus of our attention. So rather than being the objects, we want to make them the focus. When we talk in the active, the subject does or did or will do something, and the patient, the object, does nothing. But we want the object, in this case the patient, to really take centre stage. We want them to be the main idea of our sentences. And to do that, what we need to therefore do is to change the voice from the active voice, which is what we use every day in spoken English, very common. We need to change that into the passive voice. So, whereas in the active voice, we might say the paramedics are driving the patient to the hospital, we would change the focus from the paramedics to the patient and start by saying the patient is being driven to hospital. If you want, you can say by the paramedics. I taught Mr. Murthy how to use an EpiPen. Well, Mr. Murthy has been taught how to use an EpiPen by myself or by me, but actually it doesn't matter that I did it or somebody else did it. It's not important, I can leave it out completely. And instead of saying I will order a repeat test, repeat tests or a repeat test will be ordered for Mrs. Jacobs next month. So can you see how we've changed the focus to a new focus here? The patient, and in this case, the tests that are going to be ordered. So, active for everyday spoken English, but if we want to focus on something particular, the object, then we can use the passive voice. How do we make the passives then? The grammatical construction is always the same. We have whatever we want to focus on, the object, in our active sentence. Then we need the verb to be, and if we're talking in the past, we have to use the past version of to be. If we're talking in the present, then we need the present version, and if we're talking in the future, then we need the future version of to be. And we use the past participle. That's verb number 3 in your verb tables. So the patient is the main focus, is being, present continuous for now, driven to hospital. Past participle. Mr. Murthy is our focus, has been That's present perfect of be, and taught is your past participle. And then the tests are our focus, will be, that's the future of be, ordered past participle. Let me give you some more examples of how we can change it into the past, present, future, etc. So, surgery had initially been booked for January, but was subsequently cancelled due to the patient's ill health. Here we have past perfect, the past perfect passive. Mrs. Patel was treated for a vitamin D deficiency. This happened in the past, and she was treated, past participle. A culture swab has been sent, present perfect. We're still awaiting the results. Habib is seen regularly by the community nurse. This is something that always happens. It's a fact, so we use the present simple passive. Now, this is what Anish actually asked me, how can we use it? And to be honest, we don't use it that often because it's not often that something happens regularly in a passive sense. But this is an example of how we would use it if we did. It's much more common to use a present continuous passive idea, so something that's temporary, that's happening right now rather than regularly. Habib is being monitored for a relapse. Habib is being monitored for a relapse. And in the future, an appointment will be made for him at the outpatients department next month. Okay, so that's how we form the passive in 3 parts, and we can change the be to whatever we want to say, past, present or future. So why do we use them then? We've already had a little look before about why we use them. That's when we want the patient to be the main focus, or we want the procedure or the treatment, something that's normally the object. In the active voice, we want it to be the main focus, so we use the passive. And we also use it when it's not important who carried out the procedure. I ordered a full blood test was ordered. I'm not important, take me out completely, focus on the test. That's all you need to know. Now sometimes maybe it does matter who performed the test or who ordered the procedure. For example, I performed a mini memory test. A mini memory test was performed. Maybe it's important for the reader to know that I did it and not a specialist. So it's perfectly fine to use the active voice depending on the situation. If you are important, if it's significant to know who did something, then keep it in the active. If it's not important, then put the test at the front and put it in the passive. Sometimes we also use the passive to make a sentence or a couple of sentences sound nicer. Let's look at this. Mr. Khan attended my clinic on Tuesday for a post-operative checkup. He had missed several of his previous appointments, and on examination today his wound was purulent. So we've got Mr. Khan, he came to me for a checkup and he had missed his appointment. So we've got Mr. Khan, checkup, Mr. Khan, checkup. If you want, you can put the checkups together by using the passive. Mr. Khan attended my clinic on Tuesday for a post-operative checkup. Several previous appointments had been missed. So we're grouping ideas together. And that's another way we can use the passive, but it's not so important. It's much more important to use it when we want the patient, procedure or treatment to be the focus of the sentence, or when it's not really important who carried out the procedure or treatment. Another thing to just be aware of is that we can't always use the passive. So I've got some sentences for you here. One is right, one is wrong. Can you tell me which one is which? His wound was healed. We wouldn't say that. We would say his wound has healed. So healed can't be used in the passive sense. What about these two? One is right, one is wrong. Well, the first one can be used grammatically, but it's a really strange sentence. Why is the recovery more important than the patient? I think it makes much more sense to say Mrs. Catcher has made a complete recovery. Again, we really want to be focusing on the patient. And the last one for you. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? And in this case, it's the top one that's right. Admitted, when it's a patient, is always in the passive. So he was admitted on Monday evening. I admitted him, perhaps, to hospital, but he was admitted. We wouldn't say he admitted. That has a very different meaning in English. That's not medically connected. Okay, I hope you found these useful and I hope that answered your question. If you do want more practice in grammar or perhaps the reading, then take a look at one of our other videos. Don't forget to press like, share it with a friend or colleague and subscribe to us. If you want more information about our on-demand courses, then take a look at the information box below where I've got some discount codes for you. Thanks for watching, take care and see you again next time. Bye bye.